Hey everybody, what's going on? This is Matt, and today I want to talk about learning a language when you are studying in school or university, and your major isn't necessarily a language itself or linguistics, but you still want to, learn a language, but you're trying to figure out how do you balance all your priorities and things like that. And I know that a lot of people want to still learn a language, but they don't want to give up their other obligations. They don't want to neglect their major, and they want a kind of practical way to do this. And I tried learning a language in school. It was, in a lot of cases, mostly a failure, but I learned a lot of things that I think you can apply to be more successful than I was. And even if you were not in school or university, I think there are some concepts in this video that you could take to your own language learning that will be useful. So I think that, something that's very difficult with college or school is that you have a lot of priorities and a lot of obligations, and you're trying to balance them all. And when you have something like language learning where it's maybe not the biggest priority, it's very easy to neglect and for it to fall off the wayside. So probably the biggest thing is the actual, your actual major itself, your grades, right? And especially when a test is coming up or finals or something like that, pretty much language learning is irrelevant because you're worried about getting good grades, you're worried about passing the tests, and that becomes a priority versus trying to learn vocabulary words or things like that. Or you just want to spend some time with friends, you want to do something else, and it just becomes difficult to be consistent with language learning or just put in that time necessary to get to a high skill level. So all these things can be very difficult, but I think it's worthwhile to just try to keep learning the language if you can. Try to incorporate a couple of strategies and ideas because, in a university environment, in a college environment, you have this huge thing going for you, and it's probably the ability to practice your language very easily, a lot easier than people will have it like just in a non-university environment. There's probably a ton of people that you can practice speaking the language that you're learning. There's probably a ton of resources that you can use. And just that alone, I think, is worthwhile just to try to keep your language learning going because you'll have this opportunity to practice speaking, to have all these resources at your disposal that can really help you. So probably the first thing is that, try to be a little bit, even if it's just a little bit, consistent with your language learning for small items. And probably the biggest thing that's going to take you the most for your time is not grammar, it's not speaking, but it's just gradual vocabulary acquisition. So if you can just try every day, every other day, just to get 15 minutes of vocabulary learning in, I think that's very helpful, and it will take you a long way. So you don't have to give up, a mass amount of time from your studies or your social life, but just try to do 15 minutes every day, every other day, because gradual vocabulary acquisition is really going to help you quite a bit. The thing too is that as you go and go to university, there's going to be those kind of obligations from tests, from homework. You're going to be stressed out about that. You're not going to want to care about language learning, and you're going to want to put those things on the wayside. But that doesn't mean you don't have to, that doesn't mean you have to give up on your language learning. There's a lot of things that you can do that won't necessarily take away from that activity. Probably the biggest thing is listening. So, as you walk to your classes, as you walk to go study, put on listening content, right? You're probably not going to be studying walking to your next class or library. It's a very easy way to get language learning in. It's something that you have to really work on a lot to get really good at a language. And especially if you're really just busy studying for the next test or finals or something like that, listening is very easy. It's not taking up any of your time. You have to walk, you have to go to the next location, and you can still practice language learning with just listening. So even when things get really busy, or maybe you're not even busy at all, just going to different places, right? Walking to the library, walking to classes, you can put on listening. And combined with this kind of 15 minutes every other day, you're going to get gradual progression in language learning over time. I think another question that some people might have is, hey, I have a bunch of elective classes. I have the ability to take a, say, French class, Spanish class, should I do it? And from the people that I've seen kind of like take this path, I've seen kind of mixed results. I'm kind of more of a fan of the self-study path versus classes. If you have to take an elective, and you're going to get credit for learning language, so be it. But I found that in a lot of cases, people that kind of took that path, that took that route, kind of got a little bit less passionate about the language. The language became more of a chore because it became associated with passing or a grade, or it became associated with things they had to do. There's probably advantages you can get out of it from a grammar perspective, from a theory perspective, but you have to kind of just weigh those options for yourself. I would kind of err on the side of just take that time to just learn the language on your own versus taking a language class, right? If you have to do it, then, and you have, a class that you need to fill and it makes sense, then do that. But I think that in a lot of cases, the benefits maybe won't necessarily be there. So that's kind of my opinion about taking the random class here and there. But if you can just keep up and be consistent with your language learning, I think that, really leveraging your school's kind of environment, whether it's, resources they might have available from the college itself, or just being able to speak to a bunch of people in the language that you're learning, if that's an option, can be really huge. I mean, that's just such a massive opportunity. If you can do that, I think that it'll get you really passionate and excited about languages, and it's just a great, easy way to practice speaking in a language. So definitely take advantage of that, as you go. So kind of main points here is that you can always practice listening, even when you're really busy, and try to just focus on one thing, vocabulary acquisition, even if it's just for 15 minutes every other day, and use the resources of your university. I think if you do those kind of three things, you'll get a lot out of language learning without having to dedicate too much time to it, and you can still kind of focus on social, you can still focus on your grades and your overall college experience. So that's what I had to say. Let me know what you think, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.